Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands, with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
This is Nick Mason, the Living Dead drummer, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather. As always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Nik Mason, the Living Dead drummer. Nik is known for his work with Street Drum Corps, the Rhythm Coffin, and Europe's V2A. He has also made live, recorded, and or video appearances with groups such as Beasto Blanco, Orianthi, TUFF, DeLaHoya, and this was a shocker for me, Shania Twain, Nik West, Nik West, and many, many more. Nik also currently holds a healthy teaching class in Southern California with 40-plus private students per week. He is a show director for School of Rock, a performance-based musical school with multiple franchises located all around the country. Also, Nik officially endorses Yamaha acoustic and electric drums, paste cymbals, Aquarian drum heads, regal tip drumsticks, coffin case, sim pad, cool claws, and zombie killer clothing. And we're going to be talking to Nik about all kinds of stuff, drumming-wise, music-wise, all this and that and other things. So, Nik, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm doing real good. How about yourself?
Trying to catch my breath after that lengthy intro.
Yeah, you went all in on that stuff. There was a couple things where I was like, oh, maybe I should address this or that, and it was just like, wow, you just ran the gamut. I was like, well, I got nothing left to talk about now. You just kind of pretty much said everything.
All right, folks, we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thanks for the show.
Let's jump into this, dude. How's it been working with Music Gallery International with Groovy and the guys from the PR firm? How's it been working with these guys?
You know, so far so good. I've only been signed with them for a couple of months. I think I signed back in like March or maybe April or something like that. So it's still kind of fresh, but you know, the guys at Music Gallery and Groovy and all of them, so far I couldn't be happier. They're all really, really solid and they're on top of things. And the one thing that's been the most important for me is communication has been really, really good. I've worked with various agencies and publicists and managers and stuff like that on and off over the years. And the one thing that matters the most to me is communication. You should never have someone you're supposed to be entered into a professional relationship with, you know, not checking in on you or worse, like asking, so what you've been up to. Like, that's almost like a death sentence right there. If someone that, you know, you have a working professional relationship with doesn't know what you've been up to lately,
yeah,
then that's a problem on both ends. That's a problem for you communicating to them and them actually, like, you know, doing their homework on their clients. So that hasn't been an issue at all, which makes me very, very happy. I'm hoping it's a relationship that will last a very long time and that good things will come from it.
It's like, should we schedule Nik something this week? I don't know. He'll let us know. We'll see what he's up to. No. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
You are originally from New York. How much did the music scene in New York influence you as a musician? And what was it that made you want to move to California? Was it just more of an opportunity musically wise, possibly?
I mean, that's kind of always the big reason that I think anybody moves out here, for whether it's music or acting or whatever. I mean, this is the entertainment capital of the world in Los Angeles. So if you want to make a real serious go at a career in entertainment, you know, this is the biggest place to go for it. And there are other places you can achieve it and stuff like that. But I think LA's number one on the list. And, you know, growing up in New York, I grew up in like the super suburban kind of life where I was on the western part of the state. I grew up in Western New York, and I did move to Manhattan for a very, very, very brief time, almost as a sidestep. I kind of, in my gut, knew that I belonged in LA, but I sidestepped and went to New York City first, just because I was like, well, it's, you know, the biggest city in the country. It's also known for people, you know, making it in the entertainment business and stuff like that. And it's closer to home. It's, you know, an 8-hour drive versus a flight across the, you know, 48 states. So I went there first, and I didn't really have any issues landing gigs and getting work like right out of the gate, which was cool. But the music in New York, the music scene in New York anyway, wasn't quite what I was after. I had the opportunity to work with some incredibly talented musicians while I was there. The thing that I kept kind of finding over and over again was that the really super, super talented musicians that were hiring me kind of knew they were really talented, and thus they were sort of making music that other musicians would appreciate and taking things that should be like a, you know, 4-chord power rock song and kind of making it a little too artistic and a little too progressive. And that's great. That's fine. That's good. It makes good music, but it, you know, if you want to appeal to a mass audience and you want to achieve the highest possible level of success that you can in your field of work, then you need to appeal to the widest possible audience. And pop music or just any genre of music that has the biggest footprint is generally not as sophisticated. I'm trying to word it without like talking down about it, of like, you got to dumb your shit down. No, like I have a massive amount of respect for anybody who is playing just simple music, but they're king of the mountain, you know what I mean? And that's kind of where I wanted to be. I have no, this sounds stupid too, I have no musical integrity. If I'm playing the drums, I'm content and I'm happy. I don't necessarily care what kind of music I'm playing. I just get to play my drums.
Right.
But I know that to make the most amount of money, I have to stick all of the fancy artistic stuff in my back pocket and just sit there and play something straight and simple. And that's going to put me on the biggest stages and put the most amount of money in the bank. And LA is the place to do that. LA was the place where that sort of music was being produced, as opposed to the more artistic, progressive stuff that I was seeing in New York. So that's when I, you know, pretty instantly, you know, after only being there for a couple of months, I was like, this was a mistake. And I moved back home and instantly jumped on a tour with a band that was from California anyway, and went on the road with them for a few months, and then just started grabbing every tour I could, socking money away for about a year and a half, and then moved to LA. And I haven't regretted it. And it proved my point of like, stick your musical ego in your back pocket and you'll do good things. The biggest stages and biggest shows I've ever played in my entire career were me just sitting there slamming 4 on the floor all night long. Nothing fancy, nothing tricky, nothing difficult, but the biggest audiences, you know? So I think LA was definitely the right move for me.
And I want to throw this out here too. Here, I've noticed like the last couple of years, it seems like Nashville has really took off for rock as well. And you don't really put Nashville in the same sentence as, yeah, you can go to Nashville and do some rock stuff too. I mean, I'm thinking like California, like you, and plus New York, and maybe Texas, for big music stuff like that. But it's just, it just blows my mind that now you can put Nashville in that same sentence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot. I have a number of friends that all moved out of LA in the last handful of years and went to Nashville. Some of them are doing quite well for themselves, too, since moving and making that change. And it was even something that had crossed my mind at one point. The one thing I do hear about Nashville, though, I mean, one major reason to go is that it would be just far more economical, in terms of cost of living. LA is outrageous, and Nashville is quite affordable from what I hear. But I also hear that it is much harder to get your foot in the door in that city than it is here. And I don't have firsthand experience with that because I haven't gone to Nashville and tried to break into the scene there at all. But this is just what I hear over and over and over again, that, there's an elite upper class of these are the musicians that get called for everything. And unless your name is on that list, your phone's never going to ring, kind of deal. And to get lumped in with them and to get your name on that short list is incredibly difficult. And, I just keep hearing that sort of thing over and over and over and over again. And not so much as a deterrent, but I'm at a point where I've been in LA for 10 years now, and at my age and this stage of the game, I'm very reluctant to start over again. I
Sure.
took I pushed the reset button pretty hard when I moved to LA, because I had already been, establishing myself in the music industry for many, many years before moving here. And it would be like, do over number 3. And that's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that again, especially,
Right.
At my age.
Yeah,
So,
if it works, it works, man. Just stick with it. Be done with it.
yeah, exactly.
You're in several bands. You hold a healthy teaching practice in Southern California with 40-plus private students per week, and you're a session drummer. How do you fit all this onto your plate, and when do you get to sleep, man? This is a lot of stuff.
There's 24 usable hours in every day, and sleep takes up the smallest amount of time in my schedule. And, it's one of the reasons that I kind of have grown really fond of that title, Living Dead drummer. Living Dead's not actually a band. I mean, it might be a band, but not a band that I'm affiliated with. Living Dead drummer was just kind of a nickname title that I was given a few years back. And I liked it because it blended, two of my passions, horror and drumming, and also kind of spoke to the fact that, like, I don't rest and I don't take breaks and I don't sleep and everything else. And trying to balance, doing session work and playing in a million bands and teaching and everything it's a lot of time management on my end of things, and I have to budget my time right down to the very minute on a daily basis if I want to accomplish everything. I thrive on routine. I'm a creature of habit with it, and I get real cranky when my routine is interrupted or upset.
Oh yeah, me too.
So I try to stick to a routine every day to sort of make sure I fit everything in and have enough time for everybody. And there are occasions when I simply don't have the time for something and I have to say no, and I never want to do that. And it's kind of a bummer, but I've been fortunate that the majority of people I work with are very cool with the fact that my schedule is sort of first come, first serve. And they all know that I'm going to have a million obligations. And for every minute I'm not sitting in a room with you, I am with somebody else doing something else somewhere. Most people are pretty cool with that. It's very rare that I run across anyone who isn't okay with that sort of thing. And it unfortunately means I have a lot of early mornings and late nights on a regular basis, and sleep is sort of not high on my to-do list. But yeah, I'm surprisingly able to function with very little sleep. It amazes even me sometimes.
Which band fits you? If you could have that one band to play in, which one would be it for you if you could choose that one band realistically, man?
That's such a loaded question, because I don't feel like I could ever have one answer, because I genuinely like working with multiple groups. I enjoy the fact that tonight I'm going to go play with these guys, and tomorrow night I'm going to go play with those guys. I like that variety. So I think no matter what, even if I were to land some huge dream gig that I've been after my entire life, I would still have a bunch of other ones on the side that I would insist on keeping around. I mean, if I were to pick one of those big major dream gigs, my whole life I've always been very partial to rock music, and especially things that fall under the umbrella of industrial music or more electronic oriented rock. A gig like Rob Zombie, Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, one of those would definitely be, the highest on my list. When I was a kid, I'd have posters of like Rob Zombie and stuff like all over my bedroom, and I would just, that was the gig where I was like, oh my God, that would be the greatest thing in the world, is to be Rob Zombie's drummer, kind of thing. But there's also people I'm working with right now where I'm like, man, if this thing were to last forever, I would never get sick of it. The Rhythm Coffin is one of those groups for me where I was just like a legit fan of theirs. Like, yeah. I met them years ago when they were looking for a new drummer, and I went and I auditioned, and they seemed to like me, and unfortunately scheduling just didn't work out. We were approaching their busy season, which is October, being a monster themed rock band. They're working 3-4 nights a week in the month of October, and I had already signed on to do a tour with Street Drum Corps, and I already had dates locked in, and I wasn't going to be available for all of October, and so that kind of ended that right there. But I remained a fan of theirs. Like, I just fell in love with that band. They were so fun. It was like Kiss meets the B-52s, but everything was spooky and monster themed, and I was just like, this is the riot. And it was just a matter of right time, right place when they hit me up a couple of years ago, and we're like, well, we found ourselves in position of looking for a new drummer again. And they actually reached out to me looking for recommendations. They just went off the assumption that I'm too busy because I play in every band in Los Angeles. And they were like, do you have a friend? Do you have a student, somebody that, would be into this? And I told them right then and there, I said, stop looking, the gig's mine. I'm taking it. I'm doing it. Like, stop your search. I will make it work. I will figure out my schedule. I'm your drummer now. And they just went, okay. And I've been with them for, 2.5, almost 3 years, I think, at this point. So
playing with them, though, does that give you, I guess, like a breath of fresh air, maybe, or something different and new and fun, since you love horror stuff?
Well, yeah, it's definitely different from anything else that I've done. Not necessarily musically, but just the whole overall package sort of thing. I don't know. It's hard to kind of put into words or anything else. It's so many of the gigs that I do, there is a pretty decent variety of stuff. There's people I'm playing for right now that are more kind of bluesy R&B based, and then there's some straight up, pop music, and then there's some more aggressive, heavier stuff with a lot of like double kick or whatever. And the Rhythm Coffin is a little more, it's almost like a blend of punk rock and like a retro 50s kind of rock, not quite surf rock, but similar progressions in the songwriting and things like that. And but a very, very up-tempo, fast stuff. Like, you know,
right.
Cranking Dick Dale to 200 beats a minute is almost kind of on the mark with them. And then when you add the element of the show, every single show is a show. We're all in makeup. We're all decked out. There's stage props. There's, the stage is covered in tombstones and severed heads, and there's a lot of audience interaction. There's confetti cannons. There's inflatable cockroaches that are getting tossed out to go crowd surfing. There's, we have a whole crew of people that participate in the show in various outfits. There's one song where a guy's dressed up like the Wolfman and he's running around on stage on a leash. And then we have someone who does fire performance at venues that will allow open flame. And so it really is a whole production. There's always, one or two hearses parked out front next to the front door of every venue. Like, it's actually in our show advance that we send to promoters when they bring us in for a show. It's like, we require one parking space for our hearse. And they're like, are you serious? And we're like, oh, yeah. No, we're going to have a hearse parked out front. And they're like, okay. And then every time we show up in the hearse, we're like, yeah, it's parked right there. Everyone just flips their lid. They're like, I didn't think you would be serious about that.
Yep, it wouldn't be in the thing if we didn't want it.
Yeah, exactly. So from a sure, performance standpoint, they go the extra mile. They've never slacked off. There's never been a gig where it's like, oh, let's not do this thing tonight. It's like, no, that's part of the show. That always happens. Why would you even question it? Of course we're going to have 3 bags of styrofoam heads tossed into the audience for this song. When would we not do that? You know what I mean?
And people are expecting those hearses out front at every venue because they're going to take photos with it.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the people that have come to see us multiple times, I mean, they know if something's different or something's changed. They know every aspect of the show. They know on this song, this is going to happen. On that song, that's going to happen. And they, like you said, they come to expect it. And I've been a part of other bands that would, dip into the theatrical elements a little bit, but then there would always be a point where that sort of stuff would get stripped away a little by little, sometimes out of just, laziness of like, oh my God, do we really got to bring this thing with us tonight? Can't we just do a gig without it? Or, and I've seen it happen over and over and over again, where even with bands where it's something mild was of like, we're all going to dress like this for the shows, and you go and you do every show and you wear that one outfit every time. And then eventually they're like, you don't have to do that tonight. We're not going to do that at the next gig. And it's almost out of laziness. And that's the one cool thing is the Rhythm Coffin. They have never and will never get lazy. They've been a band for like 15 years and they've never, ever, ever slacked off. They won't even go out in public and let people see them without the makeup on half the time. I think it's happened a total of like 3 times since I've known them where they've like ventured into public without the makeup, but they don't allow themselves to be photographed or anything. And, we had to blur their face. We were in the studio last week doing some vocal tracking on our new record. And like all the photos that we took in the studio, like we had to blur their faces.
Wow.
Before they were allowed to be made public, which was crazy, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
That's cool. I like having that mystique of you don't really know who they are without the makeup. It's like no. I like that, and there's so many bands I wish would not reveal themselves that have, because I like that mystique of not knowing who these guys are other than their stage presence. That's it.
Yeah, it's just who they are, and I mean the only reason that I've been allowed to, be photographed with them without makeup and my face isn't blurred is because I already kind of had an established career beforehand. So it was like, well, I am not hiding anything. People already know what I look like. You know what I mean? So for that, they're like, oh, no, it's fine. But for them, it's like, no, we've literally never done a show without the makeup. We've never shown up anywhere without the makeup. So, quite literally, people don't know. There are people that have been working with the band for years and have never seen them without the makeup ever. And it's awesome.
What was the appeal of horror that got you into it? Was it just that dark, I guess, that dark place that everybody likes? Because I'm an absolute horror freak. I love horror music. I love horror movies, B-sides. I don't care if they're B-movies, B-sides music. I love it all. I eat it, sleep it, breathe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint what exactly where that came from for me. You know, I guess when I was a kid, I just sort of gravitated towards that kind of stuff. I really always loved dressing up in costumes and stuff like that. And I had a whole, it was like a bench or a box or something like that. It was like a makeshift trunk kind of thing when I was a kid that just had all kinds of different costumes. And I never got rid of any of my previous Halloween costumes. They would just get retired into this trunk thing where I could play with them anytime I wanted when I was a kid. And, you know, so that instantly was associated with Halloween for me. You know, playing dress up was associated with trick-or-treating and Halloween. And I just had this natural, you know, pull towards it kind of thing. It's always been my favorite holiday, even when I was young. And, you know, I slowly got into horror movies, you know, and when I was really young, it wasn't kind of a thing. It was a little too scary for me. But then little by little, you dip your toes in the shallow end of the pool, and before you know it, you're swimming. And that's kind of how it was for me, you know, and you know, it progressed to a point where I was like, oh, you know, it's late at night, I'm really tired, I'll put the TV on, just something I can fall asleep to, and I'll put like Texas Chainsaw Massacre on. And that'll be something for me to doze off to.
Sure.
Texas Chainsaw.
It'll sing me a lullaby.
And yeah, and I think that appreciation and that love for all things spooky and all things horror related, and I definitely think that influenced my taste in music. I you know, like I said, when I was a kid, high school era, maybe, I was introduced to groups like White Zombie and Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails when they were new, you know, like when their first records were coming out and stuff like that. I was introduced to that stuff through friends, and, you know, it was one of those things where it was like, well, I'm into Halloween in a big bad way. And this band seems like they're living Halloween every day. And, you know, that sort of threw gas on the fire, and it just went from there.
Is there anything, Nik, that impresses you or excites you the most about being a drummer, if anything possible, man?
I don't know about impresses me. I mean, there's things that will impress me if I'm watching other musicians play and other drummers and stuff like that. I try very hard not to be critical of them. I mean, it's difficult. Everyone's got a natural tendency, if you see someone else doing the thing that you do, to sort of analyze it. And I try to be very conscious of removing myself from that. But, you know, that's hard. You know, but there are things that will impress me with other musicians and stuff like that. The biggest thing that I like is just a sense of them being genuine to themselves, because we're in a town where people here understand that you need to put on a show as an entertainer. And so, you know, it's not too often you go out to a club and you see a band on stage not putting on a show, not, you know, putting their all into their performance and just standing there looking bored. But on the flip side, I've also seen some people that don't look natural, like it looks forced.
Right.
And that to me stands out. So anytime I see someone that's able to be a little more theatrical on stage or put on that show, and it comes very natural and it doesn't look forced, that's always something that I take note of, and that's something that impresses me. It's like, oh no, you know, that drummer there, like when he's twirling his sticks behind the drums, he's not thinking, I need to twirl my sticks because that's what people are supposed to do. He's doing it because, like, that's just how he plays. And that I like. I like when people are genuine to themselves. And I mean, in terms of something that excites me, as being a drummer anyway, is, I mean, honestly, just stepping on stage, and it doesn't matter who it's with. I still to this day, anytime I'm playing for somebody brand new where I've never been on stage with them before, I always get nervous. And there's an excitement, but there's also, oh my God, I don't want to screw up. But that excitement of being on stage is great. You know, like there's nothing that can match that at all, especially if you're in front of a real big audience and the audience is really enjoying it and they're liking it or they're singing along or whatever. That sort of high is unmatchable, and that's what I love probably the most about it. And what excites me the most is getting to that place again where you know all the people there are there because they want to see you do your thing, and that's really gratifying. And yeah, I mean that's what's exciting for me. That rush right there.
So regardless of what bands that you're playing in, when fans come to see that show, what are they going to get from you, man, when they come to see you live?
Well, I try to always put on a very genuine performance. Like I was saying before about people being genuine, I put my all into my performance every time. You know, every time I strike the drum, I mean it, and it's intentional, and it's got purpose and feeling behind it. And I don't ever phone it in. I've never been up on stage just kind of going through the motions for somebody, no matter who it is. I'm up there and I'm going to do the best job that I know how, and I'm going to just bring every ounce of my energy to it. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to be doing cartwheels on stage. That just means that I'm going to put it into my drumming sort of thing, you know, because I do believe there is an appropriate line that you need to balance in a stage performance, and it needs to be tailored to the music you're playing. I'm obviously not going to be, you know, twirling drumsticks around behind my head if I'm playing a jazz gig, because that's just inappropriate.
Right, exactly.
But on some sort of, you know, big rock show or something like that where people are expecting that sort of thing, you bet your ass that's what I'm going to do. But, you know, I just don't want it to be at the expense of the part that I'm playing on stage.
Or do an acoustic set and hear you sound like a death metal drummer in the back.
Right, and I've seen that before too, where you're like, oh my God, somebody teach that dude dynamics, or somebody, can somebody tell him he's not on stage at the Forum, you know, he's in a coffee shop. And that was, I mean, that's a lesson that I kind of had to learn as I went along too when I was younger, is learning what is and is not appropriate for every situation, and you know, learn how to play to the room, and learn how to read your audience and stuff like that. And I think I've done enough of a variety of different types of gigs that has given me that sort of experience where I know what's appropriate, what I can get away with, what I can't, and what I should and shouldn't do on stage, sort of thing, you know?
When you come into the recording studio, Nik, do you like to do anything differently with that band that you're working with to keep your mind fresh and open, to not get bored with it, to try to come up with something new that you haven't done? And I know you've done this for a very long time, but do you kind of, you know, do anything differently to focus just on that one band that you're helping?
Well, I mean, when it comes to recording, it's a little bit different because it's weird. Recording is like going to another country where everything is exactly the same, but it's different. So like you go into a recording studio and it's the same thing. It's the same situation and the same motions you're going to go through the last time you were at a recording studio, even if it's not the same studio, the same producers, the same engineers, the same band. It's all going to still be the same process, but it's also going to be very different from the last one. So no two are alike, but they're the same. I don't know. I feel like I'm not describing that well, but
close enough.
When it comes to like doing something different, I don't I don't consciously go in and say to myself that, you know, on this record, I want to try this sort of thing, or I want to try that sort of thing. I tend to listen to the music I was provided ahead of time. If I'm provided music ahead of time, there have been situations where I literally am showing up to a studio and I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? And they're playing me a demo, and then they're like, okay, now go do it. But most of the time you at least get some demos or something like that to prepare with ahead of time. And I don't try to think about doing something different. I just try to listen to what's there and go, okay, what is my interpretation of this? What would I do in this situation if I'm going to be the drummer on this song, or if I'm, you know, coming up with my drum parts for this song? What do I hear in my head that fits this section or this song or that sort of thing there? It's never like, ooh, I want to try this new thing or this cool thing here. It's always like, this is what I'm hearing for this part. And, you know, that in some situations they will say, okay, cool, go for it, try it, do your thing. In other situations, they're like, no, we want you to do this specific thing here. And then when it's like that, you just have to basically do exactly what they're asking you to do. The one thing that I will do to give it a more personal touch, you know, instead of thinking I want to try X, Y, and Z on this record to make it different from the last one I did, what I'll do is my equipment selection, my gear selection is where I get a little more personal with it, where I have one specific drum set that I use for recording, and I use it on the majority of recording sessions that I've done in the last decade. Not all of them, but the majority of them. And it's got a very, very specific sound, and it's the one thing where I can listen to 5 different bands that I've recorded that one drum set with, and the one thing across the board that sounds the same on all 5 of those recordings is the sound of the drums. And it's nice because it's like, that's my personal touch. Mm-hmm. And I'll be very, very specific about what cymbals I'm using and what snare drum I'm going to use. And I try to tailor all of that to the song, the individual song. So I might be hearing a very deep sounding snare drum and a big washy ride cymbal on this song, and on the next song maybe I want a ride cymbal that has a little more definition to it and a snare drum that's got a little more crack to it. So from song to song to song, I'll be like swapping out snare drums and cymbals and tailoring, you know, those elements to each song and what I hear as a good fit for that music. But I'll keep the toms and the bass drum on my kit exactly the same for everything I do, just because the drums that I use for recording sound so immaculate that no one ever processes them. They always just kind of let them run dry because they already sound fantastic. So, you know, as a result, my toms and my bass drum seem to sound the same on every record I do. But again, that's almost like putting a little signature on it of like, you listen to it and you're like, oh, Nik did that, you know?
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I hope is happening.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, you hear a guitar player, you know who the guitar player is. If you hear a drummer, you were like, well, that sounds exactly like this, and you go find and listen, and sure enough, it is that drummer that you're listening to. Speaking of that, though, Nik, is it crucial for you still to this day to hone your craft? I mean, are you still pushing outside your boundaries with your practice, with coming up with different stuff possibly?
Absolutely. Every day. I'm a creature of habit, and I really value my daily routine. And one of the first things I do every single day is hit my drum room and practice for, on average, about 3 hours every day between breakfast and lunch kind of thing. You know, there are some days where your schedule had to shuffle for whatever reason, and I might not get as much time, or there's other days where I'll have even more time and I'll spend more time there. But on average, it's about 3 hours every day after breakfast, and I I use that time to not only polish material for an upcoming gig that I might have, but also just to work on my craft and push my limits and try to surpass them and accomplish new things in my drumming, so that way I can say yes more often to gigs. Because when I'm called up for a gig, the first thing I want to do is listen to the music for whoever it is, and I'll be the first guy to say no if I know that it's something that's out of my wheelhouse. That being said, part of my daily practice routine is working on those specific things that cause me to turn down work, and trying to get myself to a place where I don't have to say no. For a long time, one of my big weaknesses was playing double kick drum stuff. I could sort of hold my own with it, but reaching some of these insane tempos that some of these speed metal drummers do and stuff like that was never something that I worked on or even aspired to do, but I frequently get called to do that sort of stuff. And, again, I'd listen to it and I might try it out. And if it's something that, doesn't seem like I could do it, I would call the band back and be like, thanks very much, but you're going to have to find someone else. I don't think I would be able to perform this gig, kind of thing. Like, it's not you, it's me. Like, physically, I can't do it. But, I have spent a lot of time in the last, I'd say, couple of years where that pushing those boundaries have become a staple in my practice routine. And now there's tempos and things I can reach with my feet that I never was able to ever before. Like, even, a year ago, there are certain tempos where I'm like, well, this is my max speed and I can't get past that. And now I'm blasting past that without even breaking a sweat. So I'm constantly working on stuff to get more proficient and better and more accurate and just be able to always say yes to every gig that comes across my desk, and being able to go into it with confidence, knowing that, maybe 2 years ago, this sort of thing would have been really hard for me, but now I can do it, no problem. Mm-hmm. And, accuracy is another big thing that I work on a lot. And that's just, working on making every hit count, making every stroke at every different dynamic level count and intentional. And, it's like a goal when I'm practicing of like, I want to be the most mathematically precise, and physically accurate drummer. Even if I'm just playing the simplest drum pattern in the world, I want it to be absolutely perfect every single time, So that's always a big focus in my practice too. But yeah, man, I play, like I said, just on my own for about 3 hours every day, and then the rest of my time is spent behind a drum set, just with other people in the room.
I thought this was cool about you, and I'm glad you do stuff like this. You hold a healthy teaching practice in Southern California with 40-plus private students per week. What do you hope everyone takes away from your drumming clinics, lessons, or just someone trying to figure out how to play as a drummer? What do you hope to get from all this, man?
I really genuinely like teaching. I sort of fell into it by accident years ago, and discovered something great, discovered something that I really, really enjoyed. I want all of my students to be able to, it's almost like going to college. I want them to all be able to go out into the workforce prepared and ready. And I want them to be more educated and more advanced than I was at their ages, kind of thing. I like creating, drummers have this sort of culture about them where, like, drummers will get together and hang out with one another, but, guitar players don't do that, or keyboard players don't do that. Like, you never see, like, 6 keyboard players hanging out at a bar watching Monday Night Football together, but you will find 6 or more drummers doing that together. and I love helping create that culture and helping bring more people into that drumming community. And it's always amazing when you start to see certain students. Not every student is going to take drumming as serious. A lot of them just do it just because it's fun, or just because it's a cool hobby, or whatever it is. But the ones that really do take it very serious and start playing in their own bands, and really, like, you can see that they're going to want to play the drums for the rest of their life, be it just, you know, in their garage with friends, or if they have bigger dreams with it. Once they turn that corner and they start to become a little bit more nerdy with it, like, and start getting into nerdy drum related stuff like I am, that is really rewarding for me, because it's like, we've just initiated a new drummer into the world with us. You know? It's like our numbers are growing, and I love being able to grow our numbers. And with the amount of students that I have right now, it's been awesome watching that happen, and watching, you know, some of these drummers again at every age, just watching them blossom and see how far they're able to take it if they're wanting to pursue more with it and stuff like that. And the other ones that are just, you know, having fun with it, and they don't really have any big dreams or anything. They got other aspirations. They just like, no, I just think it's fun. I just like playing the drums. For those ones too, that's just straight up fun. It's, you know, that's one of those things where it's like almost escapism of like, let's just have some fun with this. And we don't have to worry about, you know, cramming for a gig that you have coming up next week. You know, we can be a little more casual and leisurely, and I'm still going to teach you the right way to do things. I'm still going to teach you proper technique and how to read and write and all that other stuff. But it's a little more relaxed, because, you know, that's what you're in it for, is you're in it just to have some fun with it. You know, that's rewarding in itself too.
I'm one of those guys. I'm kind of like you guys. Like, if I'm going to do something, I go all gun ho on it. I mean, I'm like, I want to find out what's the right kit, what's the right snare drum, sticks, best cymbals to use, hi-hats, everything. It's like, okay, I got to set it at this degree. Could I get this sound out of it? I got to set this tom over here to get this sound out of it. I'm like, then I have to sit back and go, calm the fuck down. It's like, just chill. You know, just let it go and be graceful. Just let it be.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably have a hard time with that letting it be sort of mentality on that, because I'm just like, I want this sound for this one thing here. Yeah. So, oh man, I'm gonna have to go buy one of those now, or you know, or what do I got in my, you know, in my inventory of percussion related stuff that I can achieve X, Y, and Z with. And like, I nerd out on that so hard. Or even like interpreting drum parts with a song, where like someone sends you a song and you just know that there's layers of overdubs on it, where, you know, you would need 2 or 3 people to accomplish what this part is, because it's got percussion and this and that and whatever else on it. And I'm sitting there in my studio trying to figure out, all right, I got 2 arms. How do I get this as close as possible with only 2 arms? And you know, that sort of stuff is fun for me. You know, like trying to emulate certain things, and maybe I just get in my own head a little bit too much on it. But like, I always want my audience to have the best experience. So, and, you know, half the stuff that I'm probably doing behind the drums, you know, 9 out of 10 people in the crowd could care less about. They don't even, it's not even a thought to them. They won't even notice it. But I'm always like, there might be that one person out there that is like, oh, did you hear him do this? That's just like the record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I just, you know, that's what I'm always after. And that I get so nerdy about that kind of stuff of like, I got to go buy one of these so I can get that.
Any bands you're in right now working on anything new or upcoming tours that you're going to be doing possibly?
Yeah. I mean, I there's a bunch of stuff coming up actually. tour-wise, I don't have anything solid that's going to be long tours or anything like that. There's always stuff in the works, but nothing set in stone at this point. But there is a couple of cool things coming up that I'm excited about. One, with the Rhythm Coffin, we have a new record coming out this fall, and I think it drops October 1st, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, but I know it will be available in October.
Okay.
I think they're going to start doing pre-sale on it in the next couple of weeks, and this record's going to be really cool. We dug deep on it and recorded a bunch of new material. Some of the material the band had been performing for a number of years, but there was never an available recording of the songs, or maybe there was just a demo of it from 12 years ago that, again, is no longer available, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we dug up some of that material, plus added some brand new stuff that, like, no one has ever heard, and they, will hear it for the first time when the record comes out. And we called in some favors, actually, and we have guest vocalists on the record. We have Davey Suicide.
Nice.
And also, and Calico Cooper from Beasto Blanco and of the Alice Cooper Band. And the two of them came in just last week and laid down vocals on the new record with us. And we had a blast, and it was so much fun. And they were excited to do it too, because we had known Davey for a long time, and we played a show with him at the Whiskey A Go-Go last fall, and he's just a good all-around dude, and we get along with him really well. So it was just one of those random, like, hey man, you want to come into the studio? We're doing a new record. You want to come in and just lay some vocals down on something? And he was like, sure, that'd be fun. And Calico was the same thing of, like, I've done some work with her group Beasto Blanco on and off. I've done some stuff in the studio with them, and I'm in one of their music videos, playing drums in one of their videos, and everybody in that band is super cool. And so it was just another one of those, like, it would be fun. And I just texted her, and I was like, hey, I got this idea. You want to come sing on this song? And, she didn't even bat an eye. She was like, absolutely, just, when? Let's schedule it, So everyone was super on board and really excited to do it. We all had a lot of fun with it. And so we kept it hush-hush for months and months and months. And we waited until they were actually physically in the studio behind a microphone before we, broke the news that they were going to be a part of it. But they've actually been involved with the record, for many, many months. So we were just holding our tongue on it. So I'm really, really excited about that. The artwork looks great. We just approved all the artwork for it this week, and I'm thrilled. I mean, I did a record with them last year that I'm very proud of, and I really, really like it. And I just think this new one's going to top it, which is kind of what you always want as a band, is you want every record to get better and better and better. So I'm excited about that. And then in September, V2A, which is an industrial band that I play in, they're based overseas. They're based out of England. We toured last year in Germany, and we did a bunch of dates in the United States and stuff last year. They're coming back over to the States in September. We're only doing 2 shows here. We're going to be playing at the Viper Room, which we did last year as well as part of our tour. But this is we're not doing a tour. We're just doing 2 shows instead. So one's going to be the Viper Room. And then we are once again doing Wasteland Weekend, which is a 5-day Mad Max themed festival out in the middle of the desert. It's like a post-apocalyptic Burning Man.
That's awesome.
And I've played it the last 2 years with V2A, and this year is Wasteland's 10th anniversary. So we are going to be featured on one of the evenings. I'm not allowed to say which evening yet. I know what day we're playing, but I was told not to tell anybody. But we are going to be playing the 10th anniversary of Wasteland Weekend again this year, which I'm super thrilled. That's one of the most fun shows ever. because it's just like, it's insane. The first time I went to that festival, I thought somebody was messing with me, because you literally drive to the middle of the desert. Like, you're driving for 30 minutes and there's nothing around, no civilization, nothing. And then, like, on the side of the road, there's just this little tiny wooden sign with 2 W's on it and an arrow pointing out off the road. And you're like, there's no way. Like, somebody's messing with me. And you turn off of the road and you just drive for another 30 minutes off road into the middle of the Mojave Desert. And there's a whole town built. And
Jeez.
like a whole town. Like, they have a radio station and a post office and a main street, and there's nightclubs, and I mean, nightclubs are made out of, like, tents and blankets, but it's a nightclub, and, like, you know, stages and the Thunderdome and restaurants, and, like, you know, and there's a whole section called Bartertown that's, like, you know, it looks like you're walking through a crowded marketplace from, you know, a Star Wars movie, with the way people are dressed and haggling, and, you know, and you're just, like, walking around with your eyes wide open the whole time going, I can't believe this is real. And it's 5 days long. And at the end of those 5 days, it's gone. It just goes away like it never happened. And so, yeah, it's cool. I went the last 2 years with V2A, and we performed the last 2 years. And this year going back, I'm so excited for it. So that's another big event that I'm really looking forward to.
We're living in the digital era, Nick, of recording albums, get music out quicker, and plus now we got social media to reach out to more folks. Do you like the social media side of this, to reach out to more people, to hear of your clinics and things like that? Do you like this that we're living in now, or no?
I have a love-hate relationship with it. So I see the advantages of it. I really, like, through social media and through the internet, I have been able to gain access to an audience that I normally would not have ever had access to on my own. You know, when I was first coming up in the industry, it was still, you know, the old school way of doing things, of your band. If you wanted to get big, you had to sign a record deal and all this other stuff, and get radio play and this and that. And I've seen it evolve over the last 20 years, where artists don't need to do that anymore in order to reach a wide audience. The flip side of it is progression in technology on the recording end of things, and also the distribution end of things with the internet, has allowed people who don't have any business making music to make music. Anybody can go down to their local Guitar Center and buy a Pro Tools rig and get all the stuff you need for it, but not everybody maybe has the chops for that sort of thing. And as a result, the marketplace is flooded with anybody and everybody, because literally anybody can go put it out there. I have drum students that have their own YouTube channels that are 6 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so in order to find quality, or in even order to try and succeed, it's very, very difficult to weed through everything to find that sort of stuff. If you use it right, and you got the know-how and the savviness with social media, you can do really, really great things with it. And like I said, you can achieve reaching much, much larger audiences that normally, without the internet and without social media, you would not have access to. I also think it's an incredible pain in the ass. I hate the fact that I have, 6 social media apps on my phone that I have to constantly keep updated and checking on and cultivating and feeding, and trying to, work their new algorithms that they just rolled out to make everything harder for everybody, and trying to figure out how to manipulate that to your advantage all over again. And it's such a pain in the ass. It takes up so much time. And I really, really don't like having to worry about that stuff. But in this modern digital age, it is a necessary evil. So you got to take the good with the bad, and you got to hope that hope that you do it the right way. There's a lot of people there's people that bands and stuff that I work for now that like they started their music career, at the same time that I did or even earlier, and they didn't really keep up with the times, and they kind of have their head buried in the sand over it. And as a result, I have seen exactly the self-inflicted damage they're doing to their career by not using Instagram or not using Twitter or Facebook or not using them properly or not using them as frequently as they should.
Yeah. And,
then they're sitting there scratching their head wondering why no one's at their show or no one knows who they are. And man, I don't want to name names or anything. There's a group that I've been working with for a number of years, and I really like these guys, and I really love them, and I will always continue to work with them for as long as they'll have me, and I have fun playing their material. But they're a group that, like, yeah, they buried their heads in their sand, and they were achieving a moderate level of success, 7-8 years ago, and then they took some time off. They took a handful of years off, and just in that short amount of time that they took off, the industry changed. I mean, it changes on a daily basis, and if you take 5 years off and you don't keep up with it, you're going to get left in the dust. And that's exactly what happened to these guys. And then they tried to come back out of the gate. They hired me, and they tried to come back out of the gate and pick up right where they left off, and it just didn't work. They were trying to do things the old way, and they would even tell me, oh, the last time we played this place, it was packed out, we made all this money, blah blah blah, and this is how we marketed the show. This is how we got those people in the door the last time we did it. And I'm standing there saying, okay, that was 9 years ago. It doesn't work that way anymore. What you want to do to market this show is not going to work. You have to do it this way. You have to start using social media. You have to start doing that. And they ignored me. And, we did things their way, and I was right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And at the end of the night, they were like, okay, you were right. And I'm, yeah.
It's true.
I know I was right. So I tried to help you in the first place.
Yeah. And you're right, man. I mean, social media and everything has its good things and bad things. But I think nowadays, even though it kind of takes away the promoter and puts you as a promoter, I think it's better this way because you are reaching out to more folks. You don't have to do, oh, you got a show. Well, let's put it on a telephone pole. Let's put it up in a store window or side of a old telephone that you could pull up and use that used to be out there, kids. That's called a telephone, payphone that you could use, and,
right.
and put it up there. I think this is more of an advantage for you guys, if you ask me.
If it's done right, if it's used right, it absolutely can be an advantage, but it has to be used right.
Correct.
You have to do your research, and you have to do, you have to take specific steps on it and stuff like that. I mean, my social media influence, I think, is on the small end of things. I don't have, thousands and thousands and thousands of followers or in some cases millions of followers. I don't have any of that because I always tried to cultivate my audience organically, where if you were going to go and like my Facebook page or follow me on Instagram or Twitter or something like that, I wanted you to do it because you were genuinely interested in me and what I had to offer, versus playing some of the games or worse, like buying likes and stuff like that. Because I know a lot of people that do that too, where they go and buy views or they buy likes or they hire these, outside consultants to go and cultivate an audience for them. And I would rather it be natural, and I'd rather every time someone hits that subscribe button on my YouTube channel or something like that, I'd rather it be someone who actually is liking my stuff because they like my stuff. They like the content that I'm putting out there, versus playing a numbers game. So I don't have this big, social media presence as some other people do, but I'm kind of okay with it. I'm not sweating it. I do try to use my social media the right way, and I do try to reach as large of an audience as I can. It's not like I'm not out there actively pursuing more numbers and stuff like that. I'm just kind of trying to not take any shortcuts, if that makes sense.
No, trust me, it makes total sense because, and I'm not knocking people out there who do it. I just feel like I need to do BODS Mayhem Hour on Facebook the correct way. If you like it, you like it. That's cool. I'm not going to go buy likes. But I've had a lot of people throw it in my face and go, we just got 20,000 likes this month on Facebook. And I'm like, well, did you buy them?
Yeah.
Tell me
It's
what
like,
you're
all
doing.
right, well, how much did that cost you?
Exactly. Exactly, Nick. And I'm going, well, what are you doing different than me when I'm posting and doing all the right things? I'm just like, you know what? If I reach out to one person, they like it, that's cool. If I don't, I don't. You know what? That's fine with me. I know that I got to like the right way. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for too. And yeah, it's, on social media, I only follow or pages on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or like all of them. Like if I'm going to go like your page or if I'm going to go follow your page, it's because I want to see what you're doing. It's because I want to keep up with you. I want to see what you're doing. I like the content that you're creating or putting out there. I'm not doing it just to do it.
Right.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people that do that. They go and they follow, 1,000 people on Instagram in hopes that those people will reciprocate and follow them back. And it's like, no, if I'm going to go follow you on Instagram, it's because I want to see the stuff that you're posting. It's not because I'm trying to pump my numbers up. And, and maybe that's in the long scheme of things, or the numbers game of things, maybe that's not the right way to go about it, but it's, maybe a more ethical way of going about it, or it feels right to me, I guess.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I trust me, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I thought this was really cool about you, and it kind of, like, when I was reading it, and I was like, well, that's really, really cool. Everyone just about in your family is a drummer, married a drummer, so drumming is pretty much in your DNA. Let's talk about this a little bit, man. What was a spark to say, okay, I'll be a drummer? What was that spark that led to this for you?
The spark was my saxophone was too heavy when I was 9 years old to carry to school every day. So yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody in my family was drummers. On my mom's side of the family, anyway. My dad's side of the family, my father's a guitar player. His brother played bass, kind of thing. My father actually owns a guitar repair business. He's a luthier, and he owns a very well-established and prominent guitar repair business in Western New York. So I kind of grew up in a guitar shop. I mean, I used to go hang with him at work when I was a kid and stuff like that. And he showed me how to use a soldering gun, and he, I do guitar repair as a hobby on the side. And he kind of taught me everything I know how to do about that world, which is great. I can't play guitar hardly at all, but I can fix them real well. When it came to drums, my mom's side of the family is very, very, very close-knit, to the point where my first cousins were more like brothers and sisters to me growing up. We spent we spent days together. We'd all always go to their house or my house or the grandparents' house every weekend and spend 3-4 days together a week. And so my first cousins were always very, very, very close. My second and third cousins were more like everybody else's relationship with their first cousins. So even my second and third cousins were very close. Big family and very, very, very tight-knit. And yeah, all of them happen to be drummers. My mom played the drums. Her brother played the drums. Their father played the drums. And all of my cousins, like you said, if one of them wasn't a drummer, one of them married a drummer. So it was, my uncle's youngest son took up the drums after, taking after his father. And my mom's sister, her youngest son ended up taking up the drums when he was in school and in high school and stuff like that, playing in the school band. And then another cousin married a drummer, and another cousin's kid became a drummer. And you know what I mean? My uncle gave me a snare drum when I was 2 years old, and not like a toy one. Like I got a toy one for Christmas when I was like, a year old, and it was a Muppets drum and it had Animal on it. But it was a toy. When I was 2, my uncle gave me a real snare drum. And, so I always had a drum in the house and a bucket full of drumsticks. I didn't really know how to play when I was a kid, but I would, I'd take it out and bang on it and stuff like that. And then I think I was about 9 years old, and I decided that, I think I kind of want to learn how to play an instrument. But my rebellious teen years struck early, I guess. And instead of being a rebellious teen when I was 15, 16 years old, I was a rebellious 9-year-old. And I was like, I'm not going to be like everybody else in the family, and I'm not going to play drums like everybody else in the family. I'm going to play the saxophone. And,
Yeah, I'll take that.
Being that my dad, at the time, his guitar repair business was attached to a music store, my mom called him up and was like, hey, can we get a rental sax from the store kind of thing? So my dad was able to hook up a saxophone for me, and I took lessons for a year at school. And the thing was, I walked to school every day. You know what I mean? I didn't live too far from the school. It was close enough that I could walk. And growing up in Western New York in the wintertime, there's 10 feet of snow you're trudging through. And, an alto sax weighs more than a 9-year-old does. So it was just a pain in the ass to lug around back and forth to school all the time. And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy playing. It was, I didn't enjoy hauling this big ass case with me to school. So I switched, the following year I switched, and I thought I was taking the easy way out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give in. I'm going to play the drums like everybody else. I already got a drum. I already got all the drumsticks. Everybody in the family already is playing drums. And it's way easier to just toss a pair of sticks in your backpack and take them to school than it is to lug a saxophone. So I thought I was getting the easy way out, and started playing drums and started doing the whole band and orchestra thing in school. And I did that, for 6th, 7th, 8th grade kind of thing. And then decided to, level up and move from band and orchestra to playing drum set. And that's when I realized that I made a giant mistake, because now it wasn't, I just got to toss a pair of sticks in my bag and I can go anywhere. Now it was like, oh, you mean I have to take these drums with me to go play this gig? Oh, no, crap. I had to take all this shit apart and throw it in the back of the car and drive it, unload it, set it up, tear it back down, put it back in the car, drive back home, unload it, set it back up. Oh, my God. Like, I screwed up big time. But by then, it was just, I was in too deep and it was too late.
And Nick just pulled out the number one golden rule of the old timers, folks. I used to walk to school in 10 inches of snow up to my waist. We never stopped.
Oh my God! It's absolutely. I can one up that. Even it wasn't just walking to school. Like my drum lessons were, for a period of time when I was in high school, I used to go and I'd take drum lessons after school kind of thing. And then the music store that I was going to changed locations, and it was further away from my house now. And the only available time my drum teacher had for me was like 8 a.m. on Saturdays.
Oh, God.
And, oh, yeah. And it was like a couple miles away. And so, you're like 17 years old, and I had an 8 a.m. drum lesson that I had to walk to. In the summertime, when it was nicer, I could ride my bike. It was fine. But in the winter, I'd have to walk, and I'd have to be walking in the snow to make an 8 a.m. drum lesson on a Saturday, just because I wanted to keep up with my lessons and stuff like that. So that was really rough. I mean, walking to school wasn't half as bad, considering, it was closer and it was a little more convenient, but having to be up that early to go play the drums and walking through the snow like that was rough.
Kids have it so much easier these days, and they still bitch and complain.
What's really bizarre, and maybe, I don't know if it's just a California thing. I don't know what it's like where you are. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country. When I was a kid, like the one big thing that we all looked forward to was being able to get our driver's license. Like you were counting down the days till you turned 16 and you could go take your test and get your license. I don't know I've been in LA 10 years and I've been teaching drums steadily that whole time. You know, kids out here don't want to learn how to drive. Like I know so many that wait until they graduate high school before they ever even learn how to drive a car. And I don't get it. I'm like, that was like liberty. That was freedom for us. We couldn't wait to get our first car, and we couldn't wait to get our license and cruise around with all your friends the minute you got, it was like, oh, you just found out, and you just got his license. Cool. He's coming over and he's going to pick us all up, and we're going to go drive down to the mall or something. Like we look forward to that. And like kids are like, it could just be a California thing, but at least out here in LA, like no one wants to learn how to drive until they're out of high school for some reason. And I don't understand. I'm like, don't you want that freedom?
Oh, I wanted it, man. Yeah, I'm the same way. I wanted it, but financially and things like that, my parents couldn't afford it. I had to go take a driver's class, which, I didn't mind to pay the $250 for.
Oh, I did too.
So it makes you appreciate it more. And I see that now. But when I got my license and stuff, man, I was just like, okay, now I got to get a car. After I got the car, I was like, shit, now I got to put money in the car. I got to put money in the car to get gas. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ride around for a little bit, but it's not going to be like an everyday, 2 hours later, here we are, still going up and down the street. No.
Yep.
But it was freedom. That was the key thing. It was like you had your license, you got your car, you could go. Get the hell out of Dodge and just go.
Yeah. So, it was like I didn't have to wait on other people. I didn't have to wait for, mom to get home from work or something like that.
Yeah.
To see if I could borrow the car to go to my friend's house or whatever. Like I could finally just be like, I can go now. I can now do these things and not have to rely on somebody else.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I didn't have to wait to ask somebody, hey, can I go to this concert? No, I got it and went. That's what I did. So that was my freedom.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd always, if it was something like a concert or something, I'd always probably still get permission for it. But like, that was the big hinging thing was like, it was based on availability. Even if, my parents said I could go do something.
Yeah.
It was always like, I could go do it if I could find a way to get there. And once I had a car, it was, I was like, that was never in question. It's like, oh, can I go do this thing? Yeah. Great. Cool. See you later. Grab the keys,
Nick,
awesome.
Is there a show or a moment that sticks out for you so far over the years, maybe about your music career that you couldn't believe you was part of, or wow, it's just something at a concert that just blew you away about your career that you was on stage seeing possibly?
I don't know if I could pinpoint it to just one. Having the benefit of playing with so many different groups, I get highlights out of each one, and it's really hard to have one moment, but I can pinpoint an experience that I had, and that was the first time I ever had an audience singing along to the song we were playing.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't people that I knew. It wasn't like a bunch of my friends that had come to see this band a dozen times or something like that, and they know the words. These were complete strangers. These were people that were at this concert to be at this concert, and not, the front row wasn't stacked with all of your friends. It was complete strangers. I don't even think I knew one single person at that show outside of the band I was playing for. And I remember playing, one of their songs, and like it was a song that was successful a number of years ago and stuff like that, and had gotten some play on MTV, and back when MTV actually played videos and stuff. That's how long ago that song was in. And I just remember being on stage playing with this band, and like just kind of a surreal moment of like, these people know the words to this song. These people are singing along with us playing the song on stage. And the first time that ever happened, it was really special and really magical. And I've been fortunate that that's happened a number of times since then with different groups that I played with and stuff like that. But that very first time that I ever experienced an audience full of strangers singing all the words to the song you're playing, you know, and not like a cover song, not like it was the band's original music kind of thing. That was really cool. That was something special that I'll probably remember forever, of like, wow, people actually know who this band is.
When MTV was good and they did play videos,
right.
Piece of craps now.
Right. Way back in the day,
yeah,
kind of
way
thing.
Back
I mean, that experience I had was within the last 10 years, but the band I was playing for, their success came years earlier, kind of thing. So that's where it was like, oh no, these people saw this on MTV, but I was a kid when that happened, you know, and then I just happened to be playing for them years later, sort of thing.
Nik Mason, he is the Living Dead drummer, my friend. How can folks stay in touch with you, buy your merchandise, things like that, tour dates, whatever you got going on, good sir? How can they do that?
Yeah, well, everything. I mean, obviously, there, as you and I talked, there's social media, and I am on virtually every social media platform out there, and it's all at the same name, Living Dead Drummer. If you look up Living Dead Drummer on any social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, you'll find me. There's only one, and it's only me. And so you can follow me on all the social media stuff. You know, I've got tons of videos on YouTube. Again, just look up Living Dead Drummer. It'll take you right to my channel, and it'll take you right to anything that I've uploaded. And then kind of the one-stop shop is the regular website, livingdeaddrummer.com. I keep that updated fairly regular with news. Anything that I think is kind of newsworthy will go right on that homepage. And then the tour dates are updated constantly. Anytime a new gig is confirmed, I put it on that website right away. There's videos on there. There's links to audio, links to places where you can buy various albums that I've been a part of if they're available online. And then there's also links for merchandise that I have. I do have Living Dead Drummer merchandise, which is pretty cool, and so people seem to be digging it. And even drum lessons. There's a section on there where you can click that says lessons, and it will take you right to a place where you can book a lesson with me.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for my show?
I would be honored to. This is Nik Mason, the Living Dead Drummer, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link, YouTube link, and hopefully soon, I've been saying this for weeks, our Twitch link. And you want to get out and check out our YouTube page. Get out and subscribe to it, like it. Everything BODS Mayhem Hour is going to be posted on our YouTube channel. And we hope to get a lot of subscribers and a lot of likes on our YouTube page. Also, get out and check out Nik Mason, Living Dead Drummer. He's involved with a lot of stuff. He's a great drummer. Nik, I wish you the best of luck, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show. This is excellent. It's been great chatting with you. It really has.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.